But let me tell you that there is a hole in the United States that has never had its bottom measured. A spot where objects disappear silently and logic and physics and any real understanding just fall apart the moment you stand there. And this spot is called Mel's Hole. And the legend begins in the early 1990s in Ellensburg, Washington, a rural and isolated part of the country, surrounded by forests and open land and stretches of nothingness. A place that's so remote that very few people live there and even fewer ask questions. A spot that seems ancient and untouched by the world. And it was there that a man named Mel Waters claimed to own the land, and that on this land there was a circular hole that was 9 feet wide and perfectly black inside and had just the most peculiar appearance that Mel had ever seen, a spot that the locals avoided for generations. Not because there were signs up that it wasn't a good spot to be in, but because animals wouldn't get near it, and the horses would just stop in their tracks as if they sensed danger. The dogs would get all grumpy and whine and pull back on the leash as if the tail was between their legs. And even experienced hunters would see their dogs freeze up out of fear when approaching the hole, as if some ancient part of him sensed something that just was unnatural. And Mel said that the hole was there long before he had bought the land. That the old-timers talked of the hole among themselves and never lingered around it long, and that as far as anyone could remember, the hole had just always been there, a curiosity that eventually got the better of the fears that the hole evoked. And Mel decided to investigate the hole and see just what was going on beneath the surface by lowering fishing lines into the pit, watching as the line vanished inch by inch, then beefing up the lines to ropes, and then finally to really heavy-duty cables that were used on heavy equipment, measuring the length as it vanished line by line. And yet no matter how much line was let out, the line just didn't get to the bottom. It didn't hit a point of resistance or change length. It just kept on going deeper and deeper and deeper without a sound, a claim that defies the laws of physics, because it would make it the deepest hole in the world. Deeper even than the famous Kola super deep borehole that was drilled by Russian scientists. Over time, locals allegedly began using the hole as a dumping site, not because anyone believed it was safe, but because nothing ever came back out. And in rural areas where disposal options were limited, the hole slowly became a place where unwanted things were taken and forgotten. Broken refrigerators, rusted car parts, twisted scrap metal, old furniture, household trash, and even the bodies of dead animals were dragged to the edge and pushed into the darkness. Yet no matter how much was thrown inside, the hole never filled up, never showed signs of rising debris, and never overflowed, as if it had an endless capacity. And even more unsettling was the fact that no sound ever followed. No crash, no echo, no distant thud, just complete and total silence, as though the objects ceased to exist the instant they crossed the edge, swallowed by something far deeper than empty space, erased from reality itself. And among all the stories tied to the hole, one account stood out as the most disturbing and unforgettable. A local farmer who, according to Mel, threw a dead dog into the hole after it had been struck and killed by a car. The animal's body clearly lifeless, broken, and beyond help. Yet days later, the same dog was reportedly seen alive in the area, walking on its own, bearing the same markings, the same injuries, and even the same collar. A detail that left witnesses shaken and confused, because there was no rational explanation for how an animal that had clearly died could simply return. A story that spread fear like wildfire through the community and quickly divided people into two camps. Those who believed the hole possessed supernatural healing powers, something capable of restoring life, and those who feared it was something far darker, a doorway to another dimension, a portal where death itself could be undone, rewritten, or distorted, a place that did not merely heal what entered it, but fundamentally altered it in ways no one could understand. And as the rumors grew, Mel eventually decided to share his experience publicly in 1997 when he called into the nationally syndicated radio show, Coast to Coast AM, hosted by Art Bell, a program famous for exploring UFO sightings, government conspiracies, paranormal encounters, and mysteries that science struggled to explain. And during his appearances, Mel spoke in a calm, controlled, and almost detached manner, offering detailed answers without exaggeration and never asking for money, publicity, or recognition. A demeanor that convinced many listeners that he genuinely believed every word he was saying, because he spoke like a man describing something real and personal, something that had deeply affected his life. Not like someone telling a fictional horror story. Mel claimed that electronic devices behaved strangely near the hole. Radios filled with static, batteries drained far more quickly than normal, and compasses spun wildly or pointed in incorrect directions, suggesting the presence of some kind of electromagnetic disturbance. And according to Mel, these anomalies eventually drew the attention of government authorities, who arrived without warning or explanation, fenced off the land, seized control of the property, and warned him never to return. A claim that added yet another layer of suspicion and conspiracy to the story and raised unsettling questions about what governments might choose to hide when confronted with something they cannot explain, control, or allow the public to fully understand. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this story and you haven't subscribed yet, take a moment right now and hit the subscribe button. We are very close to completing our first 1,000 subscribers, and your single click can help turn this channel from a dream into reality. Now, as the story continues, Mel also claimed that after being diagnosed with a terminal illness and given only a few months to live by doctors, he made one final journey back to the hole, a visit he described as quiet and deeply personal, and shortly after that visit he experienced a complete and unexplained recovery, with medical tests reportedly showing no trace of the disease that was once considered fatal. A claim that pushed the story beyond mystery and into something far more unsettling, sharply dividing audiences between those who believed Mel had encountered something extraordinary and those who believed the story had finally crossed into pure fantasy. Because despite the chilling details and emotional weight of his account, skeptics quickly pointed out that no official land ownership records confirm Mel Waters ever owned property in the Ellensburg area. No satellite imagery has ever shown evidence of a massive unexplained hole, and no geological surveys have verified the existence of such a feature, leading many scientists and researchers to argue that the story may have been built around a misunderstood natural formation, such as an abandoned mine shaft hidden by terrain, a collapsed lava tube common in volcanic regions of the Pacific Northwest, or even a carefully crafted hoax designed specifically for late-night radio storytelling. Yet instead of fading away, the mystery only deepened when Mel Waters disappeared completely from public view after the early 2000s, never giving another interview, never calling into Coast to Coast AM again, and never attempting to defend, clarify, or expand on his claims, leaving behind only old recordings, second-hand accounts, and a trail of unanswered questions. Some believe he was silenced because he knew too much. Others believe he changed his identity to escape the attention, and some think he simply chose to vanish, unable to live under the weight of the story he released into the world. And when Mel's hole is compared to other unexplained holes and geological anomalies around the globe, such as China's massive heavenly pit that descends hundreds of meters into the earth, the fiery Darvasa gas crater in Turkmenistan known as the door to hell that has been burning continuously for decades, the sudden and terrifying sinkholes of Siberia that appear without warning, and the Devil's Kettle waterfall in Minnesota, where water vanishes into a hole with no proven exit point. Mel's hole begins to feel less like an isolated legend and more like part of a larger pattern, suggesting that humanity still understands very little about what lies beneath the surface of our planet. And today, Mel's hole remains one of America's most unsettling unsolved mysteries, with no physical proof, no verified evidence, and no final conclusion, forcing us to ask whether it was real, fake, or something beyond human comprehension, reminding us that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are not the ones solved by science or explained by experts, but the ones that quietly disappear, leaving behind only stories, silence, doubt, and a lingering sense of unease. And if this mystery made you think, question, or feel even a little unsettled, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and help us complete our first 1,000 subscribers, because many more real, dark, and unexplained stories are coming, and your support is what keeps this journey alive.